On a rain-soaked Thursday, the kind of day when the whole city sounds like secrets tapping at windows, a billionaire's world collapses at the counter of a nameless corner store. Aiden Armitage, visionary, disruptor, the youngest self-made CEO in the Fortune 50, slides his sleek black card across the terminal and hears a word he has not faced in years: declined. Around him, no one rushes to help until a little girl with wet sleeves and a red plastic pail steps forward. What she does next rewrites his definition of wealth. The rain is the kind that makes the whole city sound like 1,000 quiet conversations, each drop tapping at glass and tin as if asking to be let inside. He stands beneath the overhang of a corner store with no name on its awning, just a sun-faded picture of a loaf of bread, an apple, and a jug of milk. The billionaire's driver has taken the wrong turn. The limo stalled 2 blocks back in a tide of brake lights and honking horns. And so the man himself, Aiden Armitage, the youngest self-made CEO to steer a Fortune 50 company, a face that appears on magazine covers beside words like visionary and disruptor, walked the rest of the way under the umbrella he never learned how to hold over anyone but himself. The rain sneaks under anyway and creeps down his neck. He pulls open the door. A bell tinkles as if made of glass. Inside, the store is fluorescent afternoon. A shelf of instant noodles, a pyramid of bruised oranges, a humming refrigerator with a hand-lettered sign, cold soda. 2 teenagers stand in the aisle where the candy is, pretending not to look up when he enters. A narrow man with a tired mustache, the cashier, leans on his elbow behind the counter watching a soap opera on his phone. A security guard with a belly that seems to be doing its own thing flips through a tabloid whose headline is a grainy photo of Aiden himself stepping off a private jet. Except the man behind the counter does not seem to recognize the man who has just come in. That is the relief of a small store on a rainy Thursday. It forgives the faces of giants and treats them like any other face looking for bread. He selects a loaf, the kind that gives up its shape when pressed by a thumb. A carton of milk with a little condensation fogging the plastic. A package of plastic spoons because there are never spoons in hotel rooms, and he wants to eat cereal like a child while reading the briefings for tomorrow's quarterly call. He adds a small jar of instant coffee because the fancy capsules in the suite make coffee that tastes like burnt patience. He walks to the counter. The bell tinkles again, and a little girl shakes off the rain from her sleeves, which are too long, making her look like a hedgehog trying to escape a sweater. She carries a red plastic pail with something rattling inside. Her hair is a curtain of wet, and she pushes it back with one hand like she's seen grown-ups do. She goes to the shelf of noodles and takes one, then another, then puts one back, counting something in the air only she can see. Aiden places his goods on the counter. The cashier does not look at him. The soap opera whispers, "Why did you lie to me, Carlo?" He pulls out his wallet, the slim black leather with a black card that has a weight to it, the kind of card that earns you smirks from concierges and good tables without asking. He slides it across. 234, the cashier says, eyes still on his phone. Aiden glances at the little girl. She has gone to the fridge and is squinting through the door at the rows of juice, moving her finger as if she's counting them. It is an arithmetic of enough. The cashier takes the card, hovers it over the terminal, and the machine's screen wakes with a beep, wires humming in their sleep. "Processing," it says, politely. A polite minute passes. Another. The rain outside keeps writing the same paragraph on the sidewalk. The machine chirps twice more, and then makes a noise like a small bird that has flown into a window. The cashier's face, a landscape of bored planes, cracks into surprise. He looks at the card, looks at Aiden, looks at the machine again. "Declined," he announces, a relief in the syllables, because something finally has happened on his shift, and he is the messenger of it. Aiden blinks. He is not a man who hears that word. In meetings, in acquisitions, from politicians who want his endorsement, from investors who want more growth, he has not heard declined in years. He can taste metal. He smooths his face before it can show anything. "Run it again, please." The cashier runs it again. "Declined," the machine says, now with the confidence of repetition. The teenagers stare openly now. The security guard sits up as if his chair has poked him. The little girl has frozen in front of the fridge, the orange juice in her hands like a soft trophy. Her eyes are enormous. The soap opera whispers, "We can't keep pretending." "There must be some mistake," Aiden says. He reaches for his phone, fingers slipping on the glass. It lights up and then winks out. Red battery icon, a cartoon heart line. He thinks of every condo in every city where he has a charger. The chargers he could scatter like seeds and still never be without the feeling of being plugged into the pulse of everything. He thinks of how far all of it is from this little counter with its scotch-taped sign promising cigarettes in stock. "Sir," the cashier says softly, and it isn't gentle. It's the "sir" that means there are rules, and he is the shape of a person who is about to be aligned with them. "Do you have another form of payment?" Aiden laughs, a sound he does not recognize. He reaches for the other card, the one with the bank's name like a mountain. It, too, looks like a promise. "Declined," the machine says. The teenagers whisper, "Is that the guy from—" "Nah, that guy would never be here. He looks like him, though." And that's when the unthinkable begins. The little girl steps forward, the hem of her jeans leaving tiny dark kisses on the floor. She looks from the cashier to the bread to the man with the strange empty hands. She sets down her orange juice. She puts her red plastic pail on the counter with a thunk that sounds, in that moment, like an announcement. Inside the pail, coins, mostly 1 peso and 5 peso coins, a few folded bills creased into tired birds, a candy wrapper, a paper clip, something that might have once been a charm in a shape nobody can remember. She speaks, and her voice has the calm bravery of a storm that has lived its whole life in a teacup. "I can pay," she says, "for him." The cashier frowns and the teenagers stop being cool and become children again, because this is something they have never seen, and it rearranges their understanding of stores and people and the rules that usually never move. The security guard blinks in slow motion. Aiden feels as if someone has slipped a hand under the floor and lifted the whole world an inch. "You don't have to do that," Aiden says. His voice is soft and oddly high. "It's okay. It's my problem." The girl shakes her head. "It's raining," she says, as if that is the whole case for her decision, "and you need bread." And then, because she is a lawyer for the heart, she adds, "and milk for cereal. You look like someone who likes cereal." The cashier opens his mouth to protest, but he looks at the red pail and the little arrangement of coins inside and the sincerity in the girl's face and must understand the power of denying it in front of these many witnesses. He shrugs. The soap opera on his phone, now muted, has a couple kissing in dramatic profile as if to bless this moment with all its learned melodrama. "How much?" the girl asks. The cashier says the number, like he is reading a spell. She bites her lip, counts out coins with a speed that is not born of play but of need, of many counters and many prices. Her fingers are quick and precise, tapping little stacks into cents, adding 2, subtracting 1, pushing a coin to the edge, and then bringing it back because she needs to be sure. She adds 3 folded bills, smoothed with the palm of her little hand. She looks up at the cashier. "Is this enough?" The cashier, perhaps because he is a decent person disguised as a bored one, says, "It's enough." He puts the bread and the milk and the spoons in a thin plastic bag that will split if it is asked to carry more than it should. He passes it to the girl, who turns and hands it to Aiden with 2 hands like it a ceremonial bowl. He takes it. The plastic crinkles. He wants to say 1,000 things, that he can pay her back, that he can pay for everything in the store, that he can buy the store and the building and the block and the city if he wanted to, that he will build a new version of this place where there are never coins in pails because there is always enough for orange juice and noodles and the bones of a life. But a man whose card was just declined has to understand something first. Sometimes the only thing you can say is thank you. Thank you, he says, and his voice finds itself. The girl nods. We have to go, she says, not to him but into the air. He realizes then that a woman has been standing by the door. He hadn't seen her because she had tried to be smaller than the door frame, smaller than the rain. She is thin in a way that suggests someone taught her hunger can be outweighted. Her hands are cracked where she holds bags other people have thrown out. She is not old, but she is tired, like a person who swims and never reaches the tiled wall. I'm sorry, the woman says when she sees him looking. Her apology is for everything, for the way the girl's kindness makes him feel, for the way they have interrupted the normal business of wealth. Don't be sorry, he says. He opens his mouth again, and he closes it because what can he say that does not risk turning their moment into a transaction that only he will remember? He watches them leave. The bell kisses the air as the door closes. The teenagers begin to talk again. The cashier goes back to his soap opera. The security guard shakes his tabloid and finds a crossword. Aiden looks at his bag. He looks at his phone, dead as a river stone. He looks at his hands, which have built empires and signed checks and carried nothing of consequence for years. He picks up the red pail. Wait, he says. The rain swallows the word and chews it, but he runs anyway. The plastic bag swings in one hand, the pail in the other. He steps into the rain, which hits him in the face like a surprise, as if weather were a thing for other people. He squints. There, the small shoulders of the girl, the narrow back of the woman. He jogs, shoes slapping water, his suit now making that embarrassing sound that suits make when they have been asked to be human. He catches up to them at the corner where the light has gone red, and the cars are taking turns pretending they do not see the pedestrians. He taps the girl's shoulder, almost afraid his touch might break the spell. Wait, he says again. What's your name? She looks at her mother, receives a nod that says, there are moments when you can tell a stranger a true thing about yourself, and it will make the world better. Maya, she says. My name is Maya. I'm Aiden, he says, but it feels like an outfit. He doesn't add the last name that would make people step out of the elevator for him. He gestures helplessly with the pail. This is yours. Maya considers. It was mine, she says. Now it is yours until you can put money in it again. He almost laughs because there is no word for this in the language he uses in rooms where men wear watches that look like planets. There is venture, there is capital, there is equity and tranche and liquidity event, but no word for the bowl that gets passed in a storm that makes property into a kind of forgiveness. He takes a breath, tasting the rain, feeling it find the soft line of his collar and run down the spine like a cold finger. Can I pay you back tomorrow with interest? Maya frowns as if this is a riddle, and then she lights up. How much interest? He smiles despite himself. 10%, he says, because it is neat, and it is kind, and it is a number that will make a child feel the world is respectful of her kindness. She shakes her head. Too little, she says. And then when his eyebrows insist on explanation, she says, pay back the money, and also promise to do one thing for someone else. That is better interest. He wants to say that this is the kind of thing that ends up on posters with sunsets behind it, something people photograph and share and then forget. But she says it with such practical conviction that it is not a slogan, it is a ledger entry. He nods. It is the easiest promise he has ever made, and the heaviest. The light changes. The cars rearrange themselves like a marching band. The mother takes Maya's hand. She is watching him, the way a person watches a stranger who has found her child in their dreams. We live over there, she says, and lifts her chin toward a row of apartment buildings whose windows hold the fluorescent life of the city in little boxes. We sell empanadas on the weekends, stall by the alley. If you promise to come, you can pay us then. I promise, he says. The word is an anchor thrown into a future he suddenly wants to arrive at. They cross the street. He stands at the corner holding a plastic bag and a pail and a promise, and he laughs because nobody will believe it when he tells it to them, not in any room that matters. He puts the pail's handle over his arm as if it were a silly bracelet, and he walks back to the store feeling like his suit might grow moss if this goes on. So he ducks under the awning again, where the cashier glances up. "Everything okay?" the man asks, without looking as though he wants to know. "Yes," Aiden says, and he means it for once. He takes the corner seat by the window, puts the bag between his knees, opens the bread, tears a piece free, and eats it plain, the way he did when he was 12 and there was laughter in the kitchen, and nobody had discovered the stock market yet. He watches the rain and allows it to wash the edges off his thoughts. When the driver finally finds him, the limo gliding to the curb with the inertia of privilege, Aiden steps out with a bag of groceries and a red plastic pail swinging like a happy pendulum. The driver tries not to look puzzled. Men like him are trained to take puzzlement and iron it into something called service. "Everything all right, sir?" he asks. "Everything's about to be," Aiden says. And it is not bravado. It is a diagnosis. That night, in the suite with windows like movie screens and a bed that looks like someone's idea of a cloud if clouds had corners, he plugs in his phone and watches the world rush back in, a bright flood of notifications. The bank has left a message apologizing for the fraud alert that had frozen his cards when his driver mistakenly tried to fill gasoline at a station notorious for scamming cards. His assistant has left 3 messages, 2 texts, and a calendar invite labeled "Everything okay?" He ignores them all. He remembers the red pail and places it on the marble counter like a relic. He makes cereal, eats standing up because chairs feel smaller than usual, and he thinks not about tomorrow's call, the one where he will talk about earnings per share and user growth and churn, but about a girl who sold him the truth in a small store at the end of a rainy day. He does not sleep for a long time. When sleep takes him, it is because he has made a decision that rattles and clicks into place like a coin falling into a jar. In the morning, he dresses not in his suit, but in a dark shirt and the kind of jeans that still cost more than an honest day's pay because habits are stubborn. He takes the pail with him. The driver is even more puzzled, but nods so deeply his hat almost falls into his lap. They arrive at the alley behind the row of apartments, and he recognizes it from 1,000 alleys in 1,000 cities, damp in the corners, potted plants trying their best, laundry lines like bunting for a neighborhood parade that never arrives. There is a small crowd at the end where the smell of pastry and spice is doing what smells do best, persuading people who think they are just passing by that their day will be better if they stop. He sees the stall before he sees the girl, because the stall is a flash of clean wood and a hand-lettered sign that says "Empanadas" by Maya's mom with a crooked heart between the words. Maya waves as if she expected him all along. She is wearing a yellow shirt that believes in sunshine even when the sky doesn't. The woman behind the stall, her mother, smiles in a way that attempts to be polite and manages to be relieved. "You came," she says. "I said I would," Aiden says. He puts the pail on the counter. "I brought your money." He counts it out the way she had in the store, little stacks, small satisfactions of order. He adds what he owed and then a little more, and when the mother opens her mouth to protest, he lifts a hand that has stopped boardroom arguments and says, "The interest is non-negotiable." Then he adds quietly, "But there is a second interest, if you'll allow me." The mother tilts her head like a person learns to when life has presented many suspicious opportunities dressed in generous clothes. "What do you mean?" "I want to buy empanadas," he says, and the girl's eyes widen because this is obviously the less interesting interest. He smiles at her conspiratorially. "A lot of empanadas for my office." He gestures in a vague direction that stands in for a skyline where his company owns glass and air. and I want to pay up front for 6 months. You can expand the stall, hire help. You can bring joy by the box." The mother's mouth tightens. "We do not take charity," she says, "and it is not pride. It is survival. It is the way people hold their heads above water when the boat is a rumor." Aiden nods. "It isn't charity, it's commerce. You saved me yesterday. I will pay you in the only way I understand how to thank someone, with business." He pauses. The truth is heavier. He lifts it. "Also, I think your food is probably better than the food we buy from people who are paid too much to make food for people who are paid too much to eat it." The mother laughs despite herself, a sudden silver thing. She looks at the girl who is vibrating with the thrill of deals. "How many empanadas?" she asks. 100 a day, he says, because numbers are scaffolding for dreams. "And I'll sign a contract right now." He pulls out his phone, opens a notes app, writes a ridiculous digital promise that would never pass legal muster, and then, with a flourish that makes Maya clap, he signs it with his finger. The mother signs too, with a hand that trembles, as if it remembers 1,000 signatures that mattered less and were offered less generously. He transfers money with a beep that is the sound of the river changing its course. The phone shows success. The mother stares at her own phone as if it were a window, and the future had just leaned in for a better look. They feed him until he is full, in a way he did not think food could do. He sits on a plastic stool that thinks in advance about squeaking and does it anyway. He listens to the chatter of the customers, the quick exchanges of a neighborhood that has learned how to be gentle with each other because the city is not. He watches Maya give change with those same nimble hands. He sees her touch people lightly on the wrist and smile in a way that says the most luxurious thing in the world is to be seen doing something you're good at. After he leaves, he cannot stop thinking about it. He goes through the day like a man who has dreamt in a different language and is searching for words that feel as if they were waiting for him. In the boardroom, his executives scroll through slides about user acquisition. He interrupts, asks what we're doing for the neighborhoods that do not know our name, how every product line would change if the first person we designed for was the person with the least. They look at him as if he has told a joke in a meeting where jokes are illegal. He sees himself reflected in their eyes, the billionaire who went soft in the rain. He lets them finish their slides. Then he says, "We are not as rich as we think we are." Silence. The CFO clears his throat. "With respect, Aiden, our cash position—" "I'm not talking about money," he says, and realizes how strange that is for a man whose days are measured in it. "I mean attention. We have spent it on ourselves." They stare. The silence stretches until it becomes not awkward but elastic, capable of holding something new. He tells them the story like a parable out of time, a man in a store with no name and a little girl who paid his bill. He does not say her name because the world is unkind to the names of those who are tender in public. He says he wants to build something, an arm of the company, that is about patient capital for small stalls and home kitchens and corner stores where winter lives. He says he wants to invest in red pails across the city. To his surprise, the COO, who once fainted at a holiday party when the caterer brought out the whole fish, leans forward and says, "My grandmother sold siopao on a stoop. One loan changed everything." He says it like a confession. He says he's in. The CFO, who has 3 houses and a running joke about the 4th, says, "Maybe we can start with a pilot." The head of PR almost cries, which is very good for PR. They do it because they are people, and sometimes that is enough. They call it the Pail Fund, a name which makes the legal department nervous because it sounds unserious, and the best things always do. They give it a heart as a logo because Maya drew one on her mother's stall, and they understand this is not a venture where sharp edges help. They make the first 10 loans before the paint dries on the website's About page. They hire neighborhood coordinators who have never worn suits and can navigate the topography of need like cartographers. The press finds out despite his attempt to keep it quiet. Someone takes a photo of him at the stall, his dark shirt, the smile he didn't know his face could make, the pail in the corner with a few coins peeking out cheekily, as if to say, "Remember us." The headline writes itself, "Billionaire CEO's card declined," and a little girl paid his bill. Then the subhead, like a moral embroidered on a pillow that is unexpectedly useful. He started a fund. That afternoon the company's stock dips because some men who do math for a living think empathy is expensive. The next morning it rises because customers think honesty is value. A week later the stock plateaus a little higher than before, and inside the company something far more important has risen that can't be charted. A tide that lifts the chairs people sit in when they talk to each other. He goes back to the stall every week because he has promised. He brings checklists a consultant makes and throws them away. He brings his appetite and his attention, which tastes like what Maya ordered. One promise, paid in full with another. He watches the stall become 2, then 3. He watches Maya train a friend in making change faster, in smiling for the right reasons. He sees the mother hire a man who had been sleeping under a bridge and shows up early every morning because someone finally expects him. He buys orange juice for them both and calls it research. On a Saturday 2 months after the rain, there is a line down the alley because Maya and her mother are launching breakfast empanadas, and everyone has agreed to pretend this is a normal thing that can change the temperature of the day. Aiden stands near the back of the line among people who know him now as Mr. A and do not bug him for selfies because they know he is trying to keep something sacred. He sees Maya standing on a crate to make her announcement. "Thank you for coming," she says. "I want to tell you something." She holds up the red pail. The crowd cheers because they have chosen a symbol, and symbols are the shortcuts to feeling like a family. "This is not for money anymore," she says. "Now, when you take an empanada, if you want, put in a paper with the name of someone we should help. Each week we will draw one and help them." She looks at her mother for approval and gets it in a small nod that looks like a prayer being answered and spoken at the same time. "This is the interest," she says, and never has a financial term felt so much like a song. A month later, the Pail Fund announces it has crossed its first 1,000 microloans, and none of the press releases mention Aiden's name because he asked them not to, and someone in a basement office takes out a red marker and circles that line and writes in the margin, like a kid who wants to understand the homework, "This is how you do it." A competitor tries to start a similar fund and accidentally makes their logo look like a bucket, and the internet does what it does and laughs, and then gives them money anyway, because kindness is copyable. On a day when the sky is the color of an old T-shirt, a man in a navy suit shows up at the stall and starts taking pictures aggressively, like he wants to catch them doing generosity wrong. He works for a tabloid. He wants to know where the billionaire is, how often he comes, how much he gives, whether this is some kind of PR stunt for tax breaks. The mother answers politely, and then, not at all. Maya listens for a while and then says, "You can take a picture of me." The man lowers his camera. "Why?" he asks, thinking perhaps there is a scandal tucked under her sleeve. "Because," she says, "I'm the one who decided to do this, not him." The man looks at her, and for a second he is the person he was when he was 11 and still practicing sincerity, and he takes a picture that turns out beautiful. And his editor uses it anyway because beauty is sometimes the only way to trick people into looking at goodness long enough to notice it. The night of the first anniversary of the fund, the company throws a party that does not call itself a party. It calls itself a convening because even celebrations need to be dressed in solemn clothes when they are about work. Aiden stands at the edge of the room, which is a warehouse whose walls are now a quilt of photos, stalls and carts and little shops made bigger. There are women with flour on their sleeves, standing next to men who can write code in their sleep. There are buskers playing a medley of songs no one knew they remembered. Maya is there in a new dress that is mostly pockets because she understands utility. He wants to say a few words on stage, but finds that he has none better than thank you. So he doesn't. He lets her speak.